Here is a number worth sitting with. As of April 2026, the average Social Security retirement check is $2,081 a month. That is the figure the Social Security Administration published in its most recent monthly statistical snapshot, and it is the number tens of millions of Americans are trying to build a retirement around. Most people assume that is not enough, and in some states they are right. In California, a one-bedroom apartment now runs over $2,100 a month in most metro areas, according to Zillow's most recent rental data. That is the entire check, before groceries, utilities, Medicare premiums, or a single prescription. In New York, the math is roughly the same, which is why something shifted in the migration data over the last 12 months that most financial advisors have not caught up with yet. According to Hire a Helper's February 2026 report, over 2.1 million Americans aged 65 and older moved in 2025 alone, with nearly 1 in 5 crossing state lines. And based on U.S. Census estimates analyzed by Newsweek, California recorded a net loss of 12,963 older adults in 2025. New York lost 8,648 more. Those are not people leaving for the weather. Those are people doing the math and realizing the math no longer works where they are. Here's the contradiction most people miss. The states they are moving to are not the ones appearing on glossy retirement brochures. They're not the ones that get mentioned on morning television. They're states that don't show up in the conversation precisely because no one with a marketing budget is trying to get you there. And yet, in every single one of them, the average Social Security check covers your housing, with money left over for everything else. This video covers 5 of them. Every state on this list fully exempt Social Security income from state tax in 2025, and we verified that claim against current state tax code before writing a single word. Every cost figure here was pulled from live data within the last 60 days. We will cover the state with the lowest one-bedroom rent in the entire nation for retirees, one where a brand new law signed just weeks ago is actively lowering the tax burden year by year, and one state, the one sitting at number 1, where the housing data contains something almost no retirement guide is talking about yet. If your retirement depends on Social Security, fully or partially, stay for all 5. Number 5. Tennessee. Almost no one calls Tennessee a budget retirement destination. That is the first thing worth understanding. The conversation around Tennessee usually sounds like this: Nashville, growth, rising prices. And those things are true in Nashville. But Tennessee is not Nashville. It is also Knoxville. It is Johnson City, Cookeville, Clarksville, and Murfreesboro, where something happened in the rental market in 2025 that the national headlines did not cover. According to Zillow's November 2025 data, the average rent across Tennessee dropped 5.1% year over year, one of the largest rent corrections in the Southeast. Landlords in mid-sized Tennessee cities were offering incentives, reduced deposits, free first months, flexible terms. That kind of market shift does not happen in a hot state. It happens in a state where supply caught up to demand, and where renters, including retirees on fixed incomes, suddenly had negotiating power they had not had in years. The statewide average rent as of late 2025 was approximately $1,700 per Zillow, down from over $1,800 the year before. For a retiree collecting $2,081 a month from Social Security, that figure is significant. At $1,700, rent takes roughly 82% of the average check, which is tight, but outside the Nashville and Memphis corridors, one-bedroom rents in cities like Knoxville and Clarksville come in notably lower, with reports of sub-$1,100 units available in multiple mid-size markets. At that level, rent consumes just over half the average Social Security check, leaving around $900 for everything else. Now, here is what separates Tennessee from every state with comparable costs: the tax structure. Tennessee has no state income tax, none. That means Social Security is untaxed, pension income is untaxed, IRA distributions are untaxed. As Kiplinger confirmed in its most recent retirement tax guide, there is no state tax liability on any form of retirement income in Tennessee. There is also no estate or inheritance tax. Property taxes are low. According to the Tax Foundation, Tennessee's average effective property tax rate is 0.48%, roughly half the national average. On a $311,000 home, Zillow's current median home value for Tennessee, that works out to approximately $1,490 per year in property taxes, or about $124 per month. That's a number a retiree can plan around. The Tennessee median home value is $311,678, according to Zillow's April 2026 data, up 1.1% over the past year. That modest appreciation reflects a market finding its footing after several years of rapid growth. The homes that feel overpriced today are mostly in Nashville. The homes in Clarksville, Cookeville, and the Tri-Cities area are a different story. Here is what people who actually moved to Tennessee in 2024 and 2025 describe. Smaller cities where you can get to a grocery store, a hospital, and a hiking trail all within 20 minutes of each other. The Smoky Mountains are an hour from Knoxville. The climate runs warm from April through October, with mild winters by Midwest and Northeast standards. What surprised most people, according to forum accounts from retirees who relocated here, was not what they expected to miss about their old state. It was what they did not miss: the traffic, the property tax bill, the sense of watching their fixed income erode a little more every year. But here's what to watch. Tennessee's growth story is not over. A 2025 HUD analysis projected Tennessee rents would rise nearly 11% in 2025. And while that did not fully materialize, the state's in-migration from Illinois, Ohio, and the Mid-Atlantic remains strong. The cities that are affordable today will not be the best-kept secret forever. The people who moved to Knoxville and Murfreesboro in 2022 are paying less than those who waited. Cheap does not stay cheap once everyone finds out about it. What comes next on this list costs noticeably less than Tennessee and has something Tennessee does not: a new law that's changing the tax calculus in real time. Number 4. Oklahoma. In April 2026, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed House Bill 4072 into law. It created the Oklahoma Taxpayer Endowment Trust Fund, a vehicle explicitly designed to one day eliminate Oklahoma's state income tax entirely. That is not a political opinion. That is the text of the legislation. For retirees evaluating Oklahoma, that law matters, not because income tax will disappear tomorrow, but because it signals where the policy is heading. Oklahoma is already one of the most affordable states in the country. It already fully exempts Social Security income from state taxation, and now the state has formally committed $200 million of existing savings toward the eventual removal of the income tax altogether. Right now, as of 2026, Oklahoma's income tax structure tops out at 4.5%, following a 2025 legislative reform that simplified the brackets and reduced the top rate. Retirees 65 and older receive an additional $10,000 deduction on qualifying retirement income beyond Social Security. For most retirees collecting Social Security plus modest IRA or pension income, the effective state tax burden is very low and will only go lower. The housing numbers are where Oklahoma becomes serious. Zillow's April 2026 data puts the typical Oklahoma home value at $198,995, up 5.9% over the past year. That is below $200,000 for the average home in the state. The national median, for comparison, is approximately $360,000, according to Zillow's U.S. index. Oklahoma homes cost roughly 45% less than the national average. On the rental side, Zillow's most recent market data for the state puts median rents in the $1,400 to $1,454 range statewide. In Tulsa, Oklahoma's second-largest city and increasingly one of the most talked-about affordable metros in the South, two-bedroom apartments in desirable neighborhoods like Brookside were reported at approximately $1,050 per month in recent analyses. At that level, housing consumes just over half the average Social Security check, leaving more than $900 for all other expenses. Property taxes are manageable. The Tax Foundation puts Oklahoma's effective property tax rate at 0.79%. On a $199,000 home, that works out to roughly $1,572 per year, about $131 per month. According to MERIC's most recent cost of living index, Oklahoma scores 85.5 on the composite index, meaning the overall cost of living runs approximately approximately 14.5% below the national average. Among all 50 states, that puts Oklahoma consistently in the top 3 or 4 for total affordability. The migration pattern confirms what the numbers suggest. Retirees from Illinois, Michigan, and California have been arriving in Tulsa and Oklahoma City in measurable numbers over the last 3 years. What they typically cite: the space, the housing cost, the weather, and the quiet. Oklahoma does not feel crowded. That is not an accident. It is a state with room. Here is what most people do not expect. Tulsa specifically has undergone a deliberate investment in its downtown and arts district over the last decade. It is not what people picture when they hear Oklahoma. Galleries, live music, restaurants, and a housing market where you can buy a home for what the down payment alone would cost in Austin or Denver. The concern worth naming: Oklahoma's sales tax is high. The average combined state and local rate sits at 9.06% according to the Tax Foundation. For retirees spending heavily on everyday goods, that adds up. It's the trade-off: low housing, low income tax on Social Security, but a sales tax that costs a little more at the register. Most people who've done the full calculation find that the housing and income savings outweigh the sales tax impact at typical retiree spending levels, but verify it for your specific budget. One more thing: that new law, the trust fund created by House Bill 4072, is the clearest signal yet that Oklahoma is positioning itself as a no-income tax state. The retirees who move now will benefit from that trajectory as it plays out. We're halfway through this list, and we still haven't gotten to the state where the housing data is doing something almost no retirement guide is talking about yet. That comes at number 1. But first, a state that almost no one includes in the conversation, despite numbers that belong in it. Number 3. Alabama. There is a version of Alabama that exists in people's heads, and then there is what the data actually shows. The version in people's heads is not a retirement destination. Alabama does not have the brand recognition of Tennessee or the dramatic transformation story of West Virginia. It sits in the South, mostly overlooked, which is exactly what makes the numbers worth examining. According to Retirement Living's 2026 affordability rankings, Alabama holds the 3rd spot in the country for retirement affordability, behind only West Virginia and Mississippi. It has held that position for multiple consecutive years, according to the same source. Not because of marketing, because the numbers are consistent. The cost of living in Alabama runs approximately 12% below the national average, according to data from MERIC and the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Housing costs are roughly 30% below the national average. According to Chapter Medicare's published cost breakdown, as of 2025, average rent in Alabama runs approximately $1,042 per month, with median home prices around $221,000. Zillow confirms a similar picture for home values. On rent, $1,042 per month for the average unit represents just under 50% of the average Social Security check of $2,081. That is one of the few points in this entire video where a retiree collecting the average benefit would cover housing, including a little breathing room, and still have more than $1,000 left for everything else. Now, the taxes. Alabama fully exempts Social Security income from state income tax, confirmed by Smart Assets Retirement Tax Guide and AARP's 2026 Alabama State Tax Overview. The state income tax rates range from 2 to 5% on other income, but for a retiree whose primary income is Social Security, the effective state tax burden can be very low. Property taxes are among the lowest in the country. Smart Asset puts the effective property tax rate at 0.38%. According to AARP's most recent data, the Tax Foundation pegs it at 0.37% for owner-occupied housing. On a $221,000 home, that works out to approximately $840 per year, or $70 per month. That is lower than the monthly utility bill in most of the country. If you are 65 or older in Alabama, the state exempts you from paying the state portion of property taxes entirely. County taxes may still apply, but the total bill shrinks further. Here's the migration story worth knowing. Retirees have been quietly moving from Florida into coastal Alabama for the past 3 to 4 years. The draw is straightforward. Gulf Shores and Orange Beach offer the same warm water and white sand as the Florida Panhandle, but without what one financial data firm described as average annual property insurance bills of over $15,000 in Miami and over $3,600 in Tampa. In Alabama's coastal zone, insurance costs are lower. The Gulf is the same Gulf.
The price is not. Birmingham and Huntsville provide something the coastal communities cannot: robust healthcare infrastructure. Huntsville, in particular, has grown considerably, with multiple hospital systems and a strong Medicare Advantage market for retirees who need reliable healthcare access, not just warm weather. Northern Alabama offers a combination that is harder to find than people expect. The concern, to name honestly, Alabama's combined state and local sales tax rate can push into the highest range in the nation depending on county, as high as 12.5% in some areas. That's real. For retirees buying groceries and everyday goods, it matters. The offset is that housing and property taxes are so low that most financial comparisons still favor Alabama significantly over the national average. But know the full number before you move. The pattern that concerns retirement planners is this: retirees who focus only on the income tax and housing cost miss the sales tax. According to a 2024 Smart Asset survey, nearly 1 in 3 retirees who relocated said their biggest regret was not researching the full tax picture before moving, not just the income side, but the consumption side. Alabama is not the exception to that lesson. It's a good illustration of it. One more entry before the state that will probably surprise you the most.
Number 2, Mississippi. Mississippi consistently ranks in the top 3 for retirement affordability in 2025 and 2026 across multiple independent sources. Retirement Living's May 2026 report places it at number 2 nationally. Plutus Research's 2026 ranking, using MERIC Q3 2025 data, puts it in the top 5 by raw annual cost. MERIC's own composite index scores Mississippi at 87.3, meaning the total cost of living runs nearly 13% below the national average. None of that is news to the people who have already moved here. What is news, or at least underreported, is what has happened to Mississippi's housing market since 2023. Zillow's April 2026 data puts the average Mississippi home value at $172,654, up 2.7% over the past year. That appreciation is modest and steady, not a spike. The median home sale price, according to Retirement Living citing March 2026 Redfin data, was $260,430, the third lowest in the nation. For context, the national median is approximately $360,000. Buying the median home in Mississippi costs what a down payment costs in California. On rent, Zillow's current rental market data for Mississippi puts the median rent at $1,400, down roughly $100 from the year before. That is a market cooling, not heating, and it sits 33% below the national median per Zillow's own comparison. At $1,400 per month, rent consumes approximately 67% of the average Social Security check, leaving around $680 for utilities, groceries, transportation, and healthcare. Tight, but workable, especially for homeowners, where the picture changes dramatically.
Mississippi fully exempts Social Security from state income tax. AARP's updated Mississippi State Tax Guide confirms this clearly. No state tax on Social Security benefits, period. The state's income tax rate is a flat 4.7% on income over $10,000, but for a retiree whose only income is Social Security, that rate does not apply. Property taxes are exceptionally low. AARP puts the statewide average effective rate at 0.58%. The median annual property tax bill across all 82 Mississippi counties is $931, according to 2026 data from World Population Review, compared to a national median of approximately $2,400. On the median Mississippi home value, the annual property tax works out to less than $80 per month. For retirees who own their homes, that number fundamentally changes the monthly budget math. For homeowners 65 and older, a homestead exemption eliminates the state portion of property taxes entirely, confirmed in AARP's current tax guide. The migration pattern here is specific and documented. Retirees from Illinois, Michigan, and Indiana have been arriving in cities like Hattiesburg, Tupelo, and the Gulf Coast corridor in steadily growing numbers since 2022. What the data does not always capture, but forum accounts and relocation reports do, is what drew them beyond the price. In Hattiesburg, the University of Southern Mississippi provides what one regional report described as a cultural anchor: live performances, lectures, a younger energy that a pure retirement community cannot replicate. It is the kind of thing that shows up in quality of life surveys years after someone moves, not in the initial cost calculations. The honest concern: Mississippi's healthcare system has structural challenges. Plutus Research's 2026 analysis notes that 4 of the 5 cheapest states by raw cost rank in the bottom 5 nationally for healthcare quality, and Mississippi is among them. Rural areas in particular can have have limited access to specialists and certain Medicare Advantage plan networks. For retirees with significant or complex healthcare needs, this matters. The cities, Hattiesburg, Jackson, Tupelo, have more robust healthcare options than the rural areas. Know which part of the state you are considering. Mississippi's cost of living number looks spectacular on a spreadsheet. The healthcare caveat is the reason the research has to be done before the move, not after. Most people stop researching here. That is the mistake, because the state at number 1 is doing something in the housing market that the other 4 states are not, something that changed between 2025 and 2026, and it changes the calculation for anyone who wants to retire, not just cheaply, but sustainably.
Number 1, West Virginia. In the 2025 Retirement Living Affordability Rankings, West Virginia ranked 8th. In their 2026 edition, published just weeks ago, it jumped to 1st. 17 spots in 1 year. That is not a statistical quirk. It's the result of 2 things happening simultaneously: a new law and a housing market that has no real parallel in American retirement data. Start with the law. As of tax year 2026, Social Security income is fully exempt from West Virginia state income tax for all residents, regardless of income level. This was phased in over several years: 35% exempt in 2024, 65% exempt in 2025, and 100% beginning in 2026, according to the West Virginia Tax Division, cited in Legal Clarity's March 2026 Retirement Tax Guide. The phase-out is now complete. West Virginia also offers retirees an $8,000 deduction per person on other retirement income, meaning a couple can exclude $16,000 of IRA or pension distributions from state taxation each year on top of Social Security. And the state's income tax rates have been cut twice in recent years under Senate Bill 2033. The current top rate is under 5%, with further reductions possible depending on state revenue thresholds. This is not a state that has always been retirement-friendly. It is a state that became one, systematically, legislatively, quickly, while most of the country was not watching. Now the housing number. Retirement Living's 2026 report, drawing on Census Bureau data and Redfin housing market figures, puts the median one-bedroom rent for West Virginia retirees at $643 per month. $643.
At $643 per month, a retiree collecting the average Social Security check of $2,081 keeps $1,438 after rent every single month. That is money for groceries, utilities, healthcare, transportation, and still having something left over. The national median rent for a one-bedroom is over $1,500 a month. The difference, annualized, is more than $10,000 per year. A Realtor.com study cited by West Virginia's regional news outlet, WBOY, found that West Virginia is one of only 10 states in the country where a retiree who has paid off their mortgage can live on Social Security alone. The monthly costs in the study totaled $1,806 against the median Social Security benefit of $1,861. The result was an annual surplus of over $660. Small, but positive. In the current national housing environment, that is remarkable. Home values are equally striking. The median home value in West Virginia is approximately $170,000, according to current estimates, roughly 53% below the national median. Smart Asset puts the effective property tax rate at 0.52% and the median annual property tax payment at $881, the lowest we cover in this entire video. For homeowners 65 and older who have lived in their homes for at least 2 consecutive years, West Virginia's homestead exemption reduces the assessed value by $20,000, lowering the property tax bill further. The migration picture shifted noticeably in 2025. United Van Lines, one of the largest moving companies in the country, ranked West Virginia second nationally for inbound migration that year, with 62% of all West Virginia moves coming into the state, according to their annual data reported by West Virginia Explorer in May 2026. Generation Z led the arrivals, but the drivers behind older adult migration were also cited: affordability, outdoor access, and proximity to East Coast cities without East Coast prices. According to Census Bureau data cited in the same report, 21.5% of West Virginia's population is now over 65, one of the highest senior shares in the country. Infrastructure, services, and communities oriented around that demographic are already in place. Healthcare is the honest complexity in this picture. West Virginia's rural areas, and much of the state is rural, have historically had more limited specialist access than major metro areas. The cities tell a different story. story. In Parkersburg, Camden Clark Medical Center earned recognition among HealthGrade's America's 250th Best Hospitals for 2025. Charleston, Huntington, and Morgantown all have established hospital systems. For retirees settling in or near these cities, healthcare access is manageable. For those drawn to the most rural landscapes, where the rent gets even lower and the mountains get closer, verifying healthcare proximity is essential. The energy costs are also worth knowing. West Virginia's electricity rates run approximately 16% above the national average, according to published retirement cost analyses. Factor that into the monthly budget. But the overall picture is this: West Virginia is the most affordable state to retire in the United States right now by the most comprehensive current ranking available, and it achieved that through a combination of already low housing costs and deliberate policy choices made in the last 2 years. The Social Security tax exemption that took full effect in 2026 made a state that was already inexpensive into one where a retirement on Social Security income alone crosses from difficult into plausible. That is not something any other state on this list can say with the same specificity at this exact moment. The map is changing. Most people are still reading the old one.
We came into this video with a question. Which 5 states let you retire on Social Security alone because the state does not take a share of it and the costs do not consume it? The answer, supported by current data from Zillow, MERIC, the Tax Foundation, RetirementLiving, Plutus, and the Social Security Administration, is these 5 states: Tennessee, Oklahoma, Alabama, Mississippi, and at the top, West Virginia, which just became the most affordable retirement state in the country in the 2026 rankings, driven by new housing data and a Social Security exemption that went fully into effect this year. But the bigger idea behind all 5, the $2,081 average Social Security check, is not a problem to be solved, it is a constraint to be matched. The states that match it or come close are overwhelmingly concentrated in the South and Midwest, away from the coasts, and largely out of the retirement marketing mainstream. The states people are leaving, California, New York, are states where that same check covers the rent and nothing else, if it covers the rent at all. As of early 2026, this is the clearest moment in recent memory where geography directly determines retirement stability. The data is not subtle about this. A retiree in West Virginia and a retiree in California collecting the same Social Security benefit will have fundamentally different financial realities, not because of how well they planned, but because of where they live. A number does not lie, but it can hide. If you are watching this from one of the states on this list, or if you have already made the move, drop where you landed in the comments. The patterns down there are worth reading. If this video helped you see the map differently, subscribe. The next one covers what the migration data reveals about the states that look cheap but are quietly becoming unaffordable, and when that window typically closes.